Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.
I am here today at the National Restaurant Show with Kip Welsch, the president of VIA 313. Kip, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Give me the origin story and elevator pitch of VIA 313 for anyone who might not be familiar with your brand.
Okay. So Brandon and Zane Hunt, two brothers from the Detroit area, grew up around pizza their entire life. Zane was the first one to venture out of Detroit. He came down to Austin in 2009, and soon after Brandon followed Zane behind, and they were trying to find a place to get pizza that reminded them of home. And the Detroit style pizza, much different than Chicago or New York, and so they couldn't find anything that resembled what they were looking for. And so basically they had the intent of trying to start a brick and mortar. They started working through recipes, coming up with the dough recipe that they were happy with, shuttling ingredients back and forth, working through suppliers back in Detroit. And essentially they came up with something that they were really happy with. And then they sought out to, try to get some vested, interest, to get some people that would invest and help them get a startup going. And without having, they had a business model, but they didn't have the funds to back it or anything to really show. And so they were able to end up getting a trailer open. So kind of a small miracle with some of the funding. And they got their first trailer open in 2011 in downtown Austin. And it was kind of a slow ramp that just never, softened. They were very busy. They were finally able to get a second trailer open in their attempt to get a first brick and mortar building. And so, it took a couple of years to get to that point. They were finally opened in Oak Hill, which is West Austin, out 290. They opened to rave fanfare. They were anticipating kind of a soft opening that would slowly build. The opening night, they had people wrapped around the entire shopping center because people were so excited that they were getting a brick and mortar open. That ignited, it started to grow a lot of popularity for the brand. That led to essentially two more brick and mortar locations. Brandon and Zane built one at North Campus, which just sets off the UT campus in Austin, and then East 6th was the last of the ones before the acquisition. But they were trying, essentially, as they're growing the brand, to be able to continue to build restaurants. And one of the hard things, as everybody knows, is you don't want to leverage your existing assets in those restaurants and put that in jeopardy. And that's when they started to go outside and seek, a private equity investor to be able to help grow the brand. And after, I think, about 8 or 9 different, meetings and going through with potential investors, is how they landed on Savory Fund being the right fit, which they felt, was somebody who was very interested in protecting the integrity of the brand. And so that transaction happened in 2020. So from 5 restaurants, and now we're opening our 25th in Cyprus at the 1st of August in Pearland. So it's been a pretty rapid growth scale, but that is kind of the compressed story of how, they got to Austin and how Detroit, pizza become VIA 313. And obviously for anybody who doesn't know, VIA is by way of, and then 313 is the Detroit area code. So that's how they finally landed on that name for our brand.
That's awesome. And now you're starting to penetrate Utah as well?
We are. We actually have five locations in Utah.
Okay.
We are looking to add more. It's been a very favorable market. It's catching on. I think the people really love it. There's not a whole lot of other Detroit pizza up there too, which has been great.
Yeah. So with doing Detroit style pizza in places that are obviously not Detroit, how much of what you do is education, especially when you're entering a new market? Do you have to tell people what this is?
100%. A lot of our service model is really patterned around education for the guests. And so upon agreed, as somebody sits down, one of the first questions is this your first time to VIA, or have you ever had a Detroit style pizza? The crust, being a more focaccia-like crust, Sicilian in descent, and then having the sauce on top after it comes out of the oven, I think is something that surprises most people. But then also building the crust all the way to the edges with the white cheddar and then the grande mozzarella, it's different. And I love watching the face of somebody who takes a bite of Detroit pizza the first time, especially our pizza, which we're very proud of. But they're not expecting it. And I think that sometimes it confuses them why the sauce is not underneath. We just opened 2 in Colorado in 2024 in Denver suburbs. It's, there's a couple of other groups up there that are doing Detroit pizza, but it's still an education. I was just there this past week and talking to so many first-time guests. They're like, I've never had this. Wow, this is amazing. It's just a very different style, of pizza. But back to your original question, education is super, super important because not everybody knows like what is. I think everybody knows Chicago and New York style, but not Detroit.
Yeah. When and how did you get involved at VIA 313?
Okay, so randomly, I was kind of recruited in for the position. I spent a lot of my career, the most recent pieces, almost 11 years with BJ's Restaurant and Brew House, left as an area vice president in 2021, and then worked for another smaller private group in Southern California called Bluestone. And I was contacted by a mutual contact that's an executive recruiter, and when he reached out to me, I knew exactly who VIA 313 is. We'd actually kind of watched some of the model and what was happening with the growth and what was being done, and it was intriguing. So that's literally what got me into that initial conversation. So I came on board in July of 2023 with VIA.
Yeah. I can tell that like that Detroit culture is really important to the brand. Like it's in the name as you described and the menu, obviously. How do you and the team honor that culture and like the brand culture as you grow and scale?
Yeah, that is the most important piece. And that's the one thing we're very protective of, not changing the restaurant, like the menu, the design, the ingredients. I think probably one of the most important elements to this is even with the Savory Fund, obviously we have a board of directors, but then also Brandon and Zane themselves sit on another board where they have the majority vote, and it's to protect our menu, the ingredients, the recipes. In our designs, we've kept everything that they started with. So as you see the inside of our restaurants, like the Trenton plant and all of the wallpaper on the walls, the pictures, the hubcaps, everything is paying homage to something in Detroit that's familiar to them. Even our green walls, it's their Coney Island green, and that's a color from what they grew up with going to Coney Island. So everything that we're doing is trying to protect that the same pizza experience happened in 2011 in that trailer, and it does in every restaurant we open.
That's great. What did you learn working for big chains that you bring with you to this like emerging brand that you're working for now?
I think it is the ability to grow and scale and to be able to put systems in place. And then one of the most important things, and Brandon and Zane and I talk about this a lot, is building out a leadership team. They're like coming from 3 restaurants and 2 trailers where they were doing everything to now having a full, corporate leadership team. I can help to find and evolve systems. I know what works and what doesn't, can adjust to volume differences based off of average sales for these restaurants, and where you could do things in a lot smaller format. Now, as we're standardizing, when we add another 20 restaurants, it's much easier if all of the systems and the legwork and the foundation is built right now. So my times with the Brinker chains and with, BJ's for sure have played a crucial role in it.
Yeah. So now that you are growing and scaling this brand and entering new markets, how do you decide where you're going next?
So there's a little intuition, but a lot of artificial intelligence. The Savory real estate team is very instrumental in assisting with us because they have a lot of talented individuals there. And, we were using Site Zeus to help with looking for, new properties and new real estate. This year we started to use Placer AI as we get ready to look at, the next 5 to 8 site locations. But paying really close attention, obviously to spending trends, how many people are eating out. You can pay attention to credit card data and, geofencing, of course, to know where they're traveling. It's a little bit easier to use that as base data and then to be able to make adjustments as needed. We still are kind of deciding when you go into a new market, whether we are in more of an urban area or we start in suburban areas, because trying to get brand awareness out there is super, super important. But, still a little bit of, intuition into where we can stay close to existing markets where somebody will recognize us, but definitely artificial intelligence is playing a part now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How are you adapting to like consumer mindsets right now as people are starting to spend a little less and are worried about the economy? What adaptations do you make to make sure that people are still coming in?
It's very, very tough time, and we're in a little more of a premium space with our pizza. Our product obviously costs a little bit more than you would for just a regular counter service style restaurant. We are helping guests find value. We're working through the loyalty rewards program, to incentivize our most loyal guests with those discounts when applicable. We're adding some new menu items to be able to make things easier to share, like some of our appetizers, including the Detroit Duo. they can order one thing and then share it amongst a large group. We are looking actually at doing some family meal bundles. We just increased our catering packages as well. That provides for something if somebody wants to be able to order at home and feed several people. It's more a mindful amount per person. And then I'm actually getting ready to test our first kids menu. So it makes it easier for a parent to not have to share, the pizza, and then they don't have to get just what the child wants, but it gives them a value in a package, for the drink and a dessert and pizza as well. So those are a few of the ways that we're trying to kind of angle against this and keep, same store sales where we need to be, but get more and more guest traffic coming in.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk a bit about the restaurant show. We're kind of right in the middle of it right now, time-wise. It's Monday morning. What are you looking for when you come to a show like this?
So for us right now, the most important things, we're big on catering is our huge push this year. So I want to look at some of the other platforms regarding catering. We're actually bringing on some new third-party partners this year, but from packaging to transportation of catering products, looking at some of the things like Cambro different style boxes and stuff that we can take off site. Packaging for our mealtime items too for to-go. One of the things is we've elevated and grown the brand. We've done box and packaging changes. Now I'm trying to do the same thing for appetizers, and also equipment too. We're still trying to figure out better ways to speed up the experience. And Detroit pizza takes a long time to cook in our ovens, and so we've looked at new technology. Conveyor technology has gotten better for that type of pizza. And then the last thing, kind of as we were visiting with before, I want to look at beverages, because in addition to our bar program, which is very extensive, we're trying to also get our NA Bev program to be juiced up a little. A lot of people are going to alternates, and so we're looking at that as well.
And that can be pretty lucrative too.
Yeah. So yes.
If you do it right, it's almost the same as serving alcoholic beverages. So what's one takeaway you've gotten from the show so far, and then what's like one thing you're looking forward to the most?
So I would say for the takeaway is, this is a very good experience to network. Like, I didn't realize too, aside from seeing everything that is out there, I've run into a lot of my friends, colleagues from former brands. Some of those sidebar conversations, that's where we were helping to understand what's working for other brands and pointing us to vendors. Happened just yesterday at one of the booths, ran into a former executive from another brand, helped them find a solution that's going to be good for them. So I think for me, understanding aside from just the vendors, just the actual network that's going through. And, today we have a couple of vendors that we'll meet with. And like I said, I'm more excited to just get through and be able to see everything on the floor, because it's so much, and there's so much here to see. But hopefully come away with some good ideas and some things we'll implement this year or partner with.
Cool. So what's ahead for Via 313? What are you excited about for the brand?
So the growth is still the biggest thing. Like I said, we just actually completed a real estate and development meeting this past week, looking at where we'll go next, whether it is backfilling existing markets or going into new markets. But I think of it as we're in the second inning of our brand. And so, we're in the people business too. We're growing a lot of people's careers as we're adding, and we're going to continue to innovate the menu. We added 3 pizzas to our menu 2.5 weeks ago. For the first time, we've added pizzas in 4 years.
Wow.
So they're getting monster traction, and I think that's a lesson for us, is that people are still wanting to see different toppings and different options, even though those favorites are there. And we're going to continue to punch up the menu as we go.
What's your favorite thing on the menu?
My favorite thing is absolutely the Bobo Brazil.
Okay.
So if you like heat and spice, it's got calabrese, it's got Italian sausage, then it's finished with the Mike's Hot Honey and then chili flake on it. Doesn't have the traditional Detroit style red sauce on top, which is kind of cool. But my second favorite is probably Brandon Hunt's favorite, which is our bar style or our thin crust, and we do the MC5, which is a different cheese blend, and then just with natural casing pepperoni on it. So simple, but it's a classic. It's very good.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Next time I'm down in Texas, I'll stop by and try those out.
For sure. You
Awesome.
got to.
Thanks for your time today, Kip.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.